Ann Endsley is a treasure. The 2024 Porges Champions of the American Dream Honoree is a fascinating study in the power of intentionality, creativity in space, commitment to community, and abiding grace. The entrepreneurial mind behind Greens on 10th, Cather, Underground Kitchen, and other dynamic ventures in our region is, as you would expect, wonderfully engaging in conversation, and her gears are constantly turning. What I found most remarkable about the author of an already singularly remarkable life is the degree to which Ann is so free of pretension. She moves through the world less interested in the high-profile nature of her work than the people whom it may help. She is authentically happy to spend time with people looking for direction or just a kind word. We in the Central Valley have been truly fortunate to have her among us for more than 30 years. Her philanthropic work, unmatched. Her enterprises, immediately known by name. And the human being herself is perhaps our finest example of the intersectionality of hard work and humanity. My time with her was a joy that lingered with me for quite some time after. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Studio. I'm honored to welcome our guest, Ann Endsley, champion of the American Dream, and so many amazing things in this community that it's hard to list. So we will welcome you, Ann. Thank you so much for dropping by the studio.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell me about the community in which you grew up. What is imprinted in your DNA from that place and time?
So I was very fortunate to grow up in a wonderful family. So unlike many other people that I work with and serve, I was really a lucky one. So I grew up in a really loving home with two wonderful parents who were soulmates. And so I saw a beautiful marriage. I saw a hardworking dad. I saw a stay-at-home mom who was, devoted to her children. And, my parents basically gave me all the confidence I could ever ask for. They said, you can do anything you want. You could, be whatever you want to be. So I grew up in a really fortunate situation with very supportive people surrounding me. And I grew up in Alameda. So I grew up in the Bay Area and, had access to San Francisco and all kinds of fun places. And our family did a lot of things together. We skied together. My dad took most of his vacation in the winter. So instead of going to the beach in the summer, we would go to the mountains in the winter. But so I had a great childhood, and I saw a really functional family, and I saw a great work ethic in my dad. Having said that, it's interesting to note that I had a brother who was 12 months older than I was, almost to the day. And his life turned out very differently than mine, actually. And he actually is no longer with us and had a very difficult life. So it's interesting how we could hear the same words at the same time from the same parents and have the same experiences. And one of us, kind of took off and flew, and the other really struggled. And what set me apart from my brother really was that I did come from a fairly privileged background, but I worked from the time I rode my bike to get my first work permit. And so I was very much a person who wanted to work, wanted to volunteer, wanted to give back. And I think that's what made me a lot different than my brother, who maybe made some different choices than that with his life. So it's kind of an interesting lesson, I guess, if you will, that you can come from any type of background. You can come from a very difficult background and succeed. And you can come from a background where one would think that you had every opportunity and have it not work out for you because of the choices you make. So it's kind of an interesting example, I guess.
I'm so sorry about your family's loss. And it is remarkable, though, and the power of environment and all the other factors that come into play in just the development of a human being in life.
Right. And then the choices that you make. I mean, you may have been dealt all these great cards, but then you chose to play them differently than maybe somebody else did. So it's interesting.
Yeah, those decisions that we make, so much a function of the moment, the things that inform those decisions, how we process those things. The circumstances you were speaking about, you were saying that you come from a privileged background and you had so many ideal circumstances. We have the opposite outcome with your brother. Did community come into play in any regard to extend the environmental factor? What role do you feel that community has played in your success in your life?
Again, we were very involved in our church, and our school. And so I was raised in a very supportive, positive community. And that became very important to me. And it became clear to me from a very early age that, there were lots of people in the community who were not as fortunate and didn't have the advantages and some of the benefits that I had, which basically spurred me on to try to do whatever I could from a really early age, to do whatever small part I could play, to assist other people in that community. And so that led to a number of volunteer projects that I did, and even some things I created, some little groups and things, even when I was in grammar school, designed to kind of help the less fortunate people in our community. And then that just kind of kept going as I grew up and got older.
Your story is fascinating. I recall your biography from the Champions of the American Dream event. And it really does traverse different communities, both in the environs and also professionally. When you first encountered the Central California Valley business community, what were your impressions? How do you feel that it's evolved since then?
So what struck me the most when I, came from the Bay Area to the Central Valley was the deep, multi-generational businesses. It really impressed me that, especially in agriculture and in some of the industrial companies, that they've been here for generations. And I think that says a lot for the area, but it also says a lot for the character of the people here. And I was just really impressed with just the depth of many of these businesses. Juxtaposed to that is, sort of an awareness that there were a lot of sort of disenfranchised people at the same time. So you've got these kind of deep-rooted, multi-generational, very successful families and businesses. And then you have kind of this opposite end of the spectrum that seem to have basically no roots, no connection, and a very loose sense of, tradition and that type of a thing. So I felt like there was a pretty big dichotomy and sort of delta between those two worlds here in the Central Valley.
It's interesting that you mentioned, obviously, societal issues that we confront, that we have to do what we can to remedy, to assist, to give people the support they need in our many communities. When you encountered that element of it here in the Central Valley, what made it resonate most? Was there an encounter? Was there a person? Was there a business transaction or situation that happened that motivated you to action?
Yeah. So with our kind of our organic farm and our food businesses, what really struck me was here we live literally in the heartland, the breadbasket of the United States of America, and there's no Whole Foods, there's no, like specialty foods. So again, I'm from the Bay Area, so I had College Ave in Berkeley has probably 8 purveyors of amazing artisan, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the produce guy, and here we are in the Central Valley where it's all coming from. And we're like on the other side of the Altamont Pass, there's like all this great food that's grown, in our backyard here. And yet we can't access it. Like we have to drive, across the pass to get to the food. So that was one thing that struck me. And I was like, my goodness, if I can do anything, if I could sort of try to celebrate and shine a white hot spotlight on the beautiful produce and foods that are being grown right here. And I kind of had this aha moment. I was at the Ferry Building in San Francisco, which is just, one artisan purveyor after another. And I'm looking at all these products in this one particular stall and this beautiful jar of this gorgeous jam, and I turn the label over and it's made in Escalon, and I'm like, okay, this is my sign. I've got to do something because I can't buy this in Escalon or Modesto, but I can buy it in San Francisco. So there's something wrong with this picture. So that was what first motivated me to say, okay, wait a second, we've got to bring some of these, celebrate these products at home so they're not being packed in, brown cardboard boxes and shipped other places when they're grown right here. So that was a big motivator for me, was to try to bring that sort of product and again, to the average person. I mean, you could, at that time, we're talking, 15, 16 years ago, you could source organic produce then, but it wasn't really accessible to the average family. So what motivated me was all this beautiful stuff is grown here. Let's get it in the hands of the average family so the average family can have amazing products and healthy, organic, food.
It's wonderful that you bring up the jam example, right? I had a similar impressions when I first came across country from here. It's said that food specifically is sort of the ambassador of a culture, of a people. How would you say that the agricultural community and all the amazing things that we produce from the agricultural community speak about the culture of the people in Central California Valley?
Again, within families that have the ability to do this in our family, in families that sit around tables together, and it's such a part of the culture, and so those people are really very lucky to have that. But what about the people that don't? What about just the average people that maybe don't have a family unit, intact, and they're trying to source, food, and their options are like, fast food. There's these, food desert areas. So how do we go about trying to, incorporate those people so that they have other choices to, that are affordable and able for them to access, So I think that's what I was most interested in.
Certainly the impact of your business endeavors, your philanthropic endeavors need no introduction. When we consider the community of people that reinvest in the community, that reach out to help the way that you do, from that, what are your impressions about where the Central Valley is going, what direction it's taking for the future?
I think it's come a really long way since when at least I first started. I see much more knowledge about, clean, eating food that's clean. Sometimes I get on the wrong side of the pesticide, industry, and I've had people, say that it's totally fine to spray the crops and all. And I understand that, for commercial farming, but I feel like there's been a much greater awareness in the Valley about this and just amongst people, and people now can make a choice. They can make a choice to really read labels and see where their food comes from. And that's what's so great about the Central Valley is that, we have the ability to basically know our farmer because we're right here. And I do think the Valley has come a long way in at least, if nothing else, educating people about their options. And then the next step, obviously, is then making those types of products available to the average consumer. And I've even, on a corporate level, large scale farming and industrial production, manufacturing level, I think that, we've seen a shift, towards being more open about labeling and about, educating people and letting them choose, what they want to eat and what they want to serve their families. So, and I think the Valley has really, our agriculture is still very strong. So I feel like that'll always be a central, part of life here. It's our basic, I think it's the largest part of our businesses here.
Without any puns intended, it's grassroots. It's from the earth. It's the very start of it all. When we consider that metaphor and think of the many young people, some through the Warrior Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, others from other parts of the community, if there's something that you could say to a young person who felt compelled to start a business in the Central Valley, what would it be?
I'll probably weave this through every word I say today, is just we just have to keep going. So you have to start someplace. And I think a lot of times people get hung up on that first step, and you're trying to make the right decision to do the right thing. The first step you take, whether it's right out of school or if you're changing careers. And that first step is important. I'm not minimizing, the importance of that first step, but I know in my life, certainly, and in many, many people I know, the first step they made maybe isn't really even where they ended up, because we just don't know. No one has a crystal ball, so we just don't know how everything is going to unfold in our lives. So it's not, it's important to kind of maybe be in the direction you think you want to go in. Just take that first step, because then you can tweak and fine tune and hone things from there. But you just have to make that first step, which sometimes feels like stepping off a cliff. I think to people so afraid to take that first step, might seem like a leap, off the Grand Canyon, that first one. But once you do that, and then you can start monitoring, was this the right step? Well, what if I go one step to the left? Or maybe if I hop over this barrier, it'll be different. And at least it gets you going. So I with my children, and I just see this in a lot of people that I mentor, it's that fear of that first step, but once you get in there, then you can start working with where you are and what's happening.
So much of it is an act of courage. Completely agreed. Taking that first
It
step.
really is. Yeah.
And it's part of like, I don't want to editorialize here, but like my impression, having interviewed amazing people in the community and been here for almost a decade now, is that so much of it is an act of continuous learning. What does the concept or the idea of continuous learning mean to you?
I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's just every single day. I mean, we just don't know what balls are going to be thrown at us during the day. We just don't know. We don't know if we should let it go because it's going to be out. We don't know if we should catch it and hold on to it, catch it and get rid of it as fast as we can. We just don't know. So you just have to constantly be willing to learn and be open-minded, to learning new things. And I think a lot of people get stuck, and it's very admirable to have a plan and have everything sort of sketched out and create a matrix and, all the wonderful tools that we have nowadays. And those are very helpful, but we should always just have one ear completely open to possibilities because, we may not have thought of something or conditions may have changed. I mean, our economy is changing, by the hour, it seems like. So we have to be able to pivot and move. And I know in my career, I've done that many times. And like I said, that's why that first step is really important. But, my goodness, I would never, I mean, if someone had handed me a piece of paper when I was 21 and said, jot down where you think you're going to go, it would be nothing like how my life has turned out. Not at all.
You always, or at least in my interactions with you, you express, you put out into the universe this joie de vivre, this, I wouldn't say confidence, but it seems that you bring a sort of a joy to what for a lot of people, scary situation, starting up a business,
Yeah. I mean, it's super scary. I mean, it couldn't be scarier, actually, but again, okay, so yes, it's incredibly scary, incredibly stressful, but I'm always kind of like, what's the absolute worst thing that can happen? Okay, so you have a great big sales pitch and it doesn't work. Okay, well, that didn't work. Okay, so the sun goes down and that maybe wasn't a great day, but then the sun comes up the next morning, you're like, okay, what happened there? Like, we didn't get that deal. Like, that went horrible, so I'm always looking at, okay, that wasn't successful, but what can we do to make it more successful? So the worst thing that can happen is, yes, there's disappointments, there's things that don't happen, there's projects that don't work out. But then to me, those are just the most valuable learning experiences and sometimes you even make the same mistake again. I mean, you kind of hope you don't, but sometimes you do. And it's just, again, every day. So I mean, I'm joyful because I believe that, like, even though, I have personally fallen, flat on my face a number of times, we're just lucky that we're given another chance to try again and see if it works. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you have to really shift direction. But it's sort of, that's part of the fun and the challenge of trying to make things work out. And then the backup for me always is, entrepreneurs, I mean, we do a lot. We see ourselves as, we do a lot ourselves. I mean, I think we see ourselves as the ones doing a lot of the work. And when I've been at my most, like, I don't know if this is going to work, if I just, let down my entrepreneurial tendencies and reach out and ask for help, which is, I think, the hardest thing, then, all of a sudden you just are fed, I guess, with new ideas and new hope to keep going and try other things. And I think that's such a critical part of success, is they just acknowledging, okay, what I was trying didn't work. What do you guys think we should do? And allow yourself to be open to input and direction from others. And then a lot of times that's what then kind of kicks everything off and gets you back on track again.
So as much as I would love to surrender to the impulse of appreciating whimsy and magical things, because I'm an educator, I absolutely must, even at the cost of ruining this podcast, get to the bottom of the phenomenon. And my first track as an educator is that these things can be taught. Who or what has been your greatest teacher in life?
That's a great question. I think my greatest teacher has been the people that I have worked with. My dad was my absolute mentor. He was my North Star, and I model so much of what I do from him. So from, that standpoint, I learned a lot from my dad. But I think on a daily basis, watching the struggles and the successes and the growth and the sheer determination of people around me are just first of all, they're my heroes, but they're also my teachers, because they remind me of all the possibilities in life. I mean, there's people that work for me that have overcome extraordinary challenges in their lives, and they get up every day with joy and with resilience, and that just teaches me and puts in perspective for me, so much just on a day-to-day basis.
If you were to be a teacher, what would you teach?
So I would teach group communication. So I would teach, I think in business, and I really want to share this with your wonderful warrior entrepreneurs. In business, one of the things that I've seen that is so limiting, and I don't understand why more people function and so many entrepreneurs and so many business owners have like a real hierarchy. And I think some of it's a little ego driven, and some of it is, maybe they think that's the best way to run a business. And in some ways it is. But group communication to me has made the biggest difference. And I would love to teach that to as many people who would listen. And what I mean by that is we literally operate many businesses on group text and group communication. So I don't care, if you might have the most minor role on a team or a project, you get the group text that every single person gets. And I tell my team, I said, if it doesn't pertain to you, you just watch it go by like a movie. And you're like, wow, the marketing team's having a really rough day, or gosh, our delivery didn't get there and we're on our third truck because it broke down on the freeway, and it has nothing to do with you, but you're aware that the logistics team had a real rough day today. So, or there's a big success and I want everyone to know about it. So I would teach the benefits. My class would be the benefits of group communication in all businesses, because I just think it's critical. And I just think it's something that often isn't done. And I think it tends to disenfranchise people and creates kind of some cultural problems within companies. And it takes a minute for people to get used to it. Like I have people join our teams and they're like, what do you mean? Like everything's on a group, and we never say anything disrespectful or, unkind on it, but it's just more so that everyone feels that they have a stake in the game and they're a seat at the table and they're part of the culture.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a yes for Ann Endsley, guest speaker for one of my classes next semester. I'm going to take that liberty now.
Oh my gosh, sign me up.
Oh, that's it. It's now committed to a recording, so that's it. I want to talk a little bit about research. I guess it sort of goes hand in hand with teaching, or at least for those of us in this space. What role do you believe research plays in your everyday life?
So I am a serial researcher. If I don't really watch TV, so I'm either reading cookbooks or reading cookbooks and recipes and things for the business, or researching what others are doing in the different fields that I'm involved in. I love seeing what other people are doing. I find it, really inspiring. And so I'm a fan of deep diving as much as you possibly can into your field and what others are doing in similar fields, and even fields that are a tangent to your field that maybe you could expand into. So I just am a voracious researcher. It's like entertainment for me, actually.
So, and that's I can't get off of that comment. I can't leave that alone. You don't watch a lot of TV, if at all.
No, not really. No.
What's that like?
Well, I just have so much going on. I mean, sometimes if I'm on the treadmill, I'll watch I don't know, some Pride and I don't know. I mean, I love historical English, British, I love.
You were going to say Pride and Prejudice. So that's what that
Well,
is.
yeah, but I mean, I love things like that. And I love, more like it, but I don't sit and watch sitcom tea, you know what I mean?
Got time.
Right. And so I'm, but I just, like I said, I there's just certain things I love to, just look into and see what's going on, How
do you feel about social media?
So I think social media is super important. I think it's a critical part of marketing our businesses. So from a business standpoint, I think it's very valuable. The personal stuff, I'm not a big post. I don't post I went here today and that kind of thing. So I don't do a lot of like personal social media, but for the businesses, I think it's a critical tool. And again, that's something I research. I look at what other people in similar businesses are doing with their social media and how they're, I'm very inspired. There's just some excellent work being done, I think, in terms of promoting businesses. And I feel like the customer in so many fields is immediately going to social media first to see, what the vibe or the feel of the various product or company or service is. So I think it's critically important to have really good social media to promote whatever enterprise you're working on.
What is the secretly coolest part of what you do?
So for me personally, the coolest thing is for me to see a person who came in to one of our companies or, who I've met somewhere along the line, and just see that person blossom and start to realize their value and their potential. Like that is the coolest thing for me to see, is to watch others bloom and grow. People that didn't believe in themselves, people didn't believe in them, no one ever, respected them or trusted them or whatever, to see them be respected, be trusted, and just, watch, you can just see it on their faces that they feel value in themselves. That's the coolest thing for me to see.
You brought up, once again, one of my favorite words, reinvention, and especially as it applies to an individual coming into their own, learning a new skill, evolving within a job position, a career, profession. To what degree is it a conscious act of innovation for a human being to sort of get to that space?
I think it's something that you have to just feel. I mean, there's, learning a skill and gaining competence and confidence in that skill, I think is, critically important. I think that's sort of the starting point, where you can still sort of be, quaking inside and not confident, but you're executing a task that maybe was taught to you or given to you as part of a job. But I think it's when you really start to, internalize your value beyond the skill, that gives you the courage and the strength to then try other things, So it's like, I've mastered this, gosh, maybe I could master the next step. And then you master the next step, and you're like, wait a minute, maybe I am kind of a valuable person. And I think that's kind of a process that is maybe driven by learning actual skills, but, then starts to come from inside. And I think that's where the real power, comes from.
There's sort of a tangential relationship in entrepreneurship and understanding and knowing your intrinsic value. What was it like for you when you realized that when that sort of clicked for you? Like, I know my value.
Right. So that's a great question. And it's, so again, my parents were, people that were like, you've got lots to give, you can do whatever you want, so I kind of like had that tape playing in my head, but you're always kind of like, well, yeah, of course your parents are going to tell you that. What happens when you really get out in the real world? And I remember, most of my first jobs were pretty, not mundane, but, they didn't really, I knew I could do them type of a thing. So I wasn't really stretched. But the first time I was really stretched was when I went to work as an intern, actually, in an investment company. And I had always been told, I learned math and could do math and did, A minus B plus in math in terms of grades and passing tests. But like I had a teacher one time tell me I was never going to be good in math. So here I was in an investment company where everybody's rattling around numbers and percentages. And I was like, what if I can't cut this, And I just remember sitting there and all these really powerful people, and I was super intimidated, and I was a senior in college, and I sort of was doing this crazy job where I was updating a book that needed to be updated. It was like a crazy job. But I was just watching what was going on around me, and I was there for a couple months. And I remember just one day all of a sudden going, wait, is this is it? Like, this is it. Like, I can totally do this. I mean, it was just a day where I was just like, all of a sudden I was like, okay, everyone here is great. They're very smart. They're very professional. And it's a great business and they're successful. But like, I can totally do this. Like, if this is, it was like, if this is all it is, I don't know. I think I had built up in my mind that it was, you had to be this like Einstein level, and not to like diss, anyone there or anything, but I just remember there was a day where I was just like, wait a second, if this is what it means, if this is what you have to do to be successful in, at that point, the investment, real estate and investment banking world, I've got this, and that was just kind of like a day. And then I was like, okay, well, so I remember asking like, well, once I'm done with this internship, how about working here? And they were like, sure. Like, yeah. And that was it, and then I was just went from an intern on Friday to working there the following Monday. And that was it, off we went.
So it's an amazing story. There's that moment, right? It sort of brings me back to what you were saying earlier about taking that leap of faith, that first step in entrepreneurship. When you took that leap from the last place where you were employed by someone else, was it similar? Was there that level of clarity? You know what? I've taken this as far as I can go. That's it. Appreciate it. Thanks for the memories. I'm going to go do this now.
So in my case, it was very specific. So I had I've just explained, went from an intern to working in this investment company, had a great run there. And the person I was working for ended up going to a different company, and I ended up filling his position at 23 years old. He was probably in his late 60s. And I did his job for 2 years. They didn't hire someone else because I had been his assistant and doing everything. And then, because I knew all of that, they just left me there. So I ended up with like a straight up learning curve situation. I mean, it was such a gift. But so then from there, I was recruited by another company for significant, it was a very tempting offer, and I took it, and I went to this new company, and I was there for a short period of time. And I realized that company was basically doing illegal investment activity. It wasn't quite as big as the Bernie Madoff issue, but it was like a misappropriation of funds type situation. And I was just there I was there probably 6 weeks when I realized what was going on. And so I approached the head of this company and, set up a private meeting with him. And I said, I'm seeing what's happening here. And I'm assuming you know this, but like, this is securities fraud, and like, this is not ethical. And he looked at me and he said, and I was very young at the time, I was 25. And he said, actually, we hired you because you have all these contacts from your prior job, but we didn't think you were smart enough to figure this out. Oh. And so I said, well, I am, and I'm now resigning. And, I left, type of thing. So when I, kind of recovered from that situation, I decided that the only way I could really control the situation I was in, the ethics of the situation I was in, was to start my own company. So what spurred me to become an entrepreneur and start my own business was this experience, and the fact that, by having my own company, I could control who I worked with, how everything was done on an ethical basis. And so I started my own investment company with a partner who had worked at the first company that I worked for. Okay. We teamed up and started our own business because then we could, make sure that everything was ethical, everything was compliant and, legal and all that kind of thing. And so we then set up a consulting company to help people put investment projects together, doing it the right way. And and that company, by the way, ended up being one of the largest investor fraud cases in the history of the state of California. And like, the gentleman whose office I sat in, that gentleman ended up in prison. So, I mean, it was definitely the right move to make.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
What was that? Because you allude to a wilderness period there when you said I had to recover from that. And I absolutely feel that. What was that like? What was that period like for you?
It was made such an impact on me to be so close to being drawn into something that was so inappropriate. And so, and the fact that I did do some due diligence before I went to work there, but it was a very well sort of covered situation there. But I just felt really blessed that I was able to see it and not get dragged into it and go down, with that ship. In fact, I was one of the main witnesses to testify against them in the hearing. So I was fortunate, but it was such an eye opener in terms of, being in control of one's destiny. And I just realized that, if you're with a company, you do kind of know what's going on, but you really never fully know what's going on unless you are the one at the helm making those decisions, and so that just really gave me the courage and the impetus, I guess, to just, set up my own job, I guess, and ensure that it would be done, properly.
And you're 25 years old when this is happening.
That's a little detail there. Wow. That's the age of most of my students upon graduation to have this hoisted upon them,
Right.
Their ideas and their innovations. Take me back, if you would, to a moment in which you were part of an innovation and you knew it before most people did. What was it?
Right.
What made you draw in that involuntarily quicker breath?
Right. Okay. So it all ties in. So the first company that I was at when I was an intern and then worked there for a couple of years, this was, 1982, 83, 84. So PC computers were just being invented. I mean, in 80 and before, it was the big mainframes that took a whole room, the big IBM systems that look like a giant truck, in a huge piece of equipment. And so Compaq was, and then Apple after that, were developing, oh my gosh, this thing called a personal computer. Like, what is that? So my dad, my wonderful dad, my mentor, bought me a Compaq, I was going to say laptop. Oh my gosh, a Compaq computer. And it looked like a sewing machine. Okay. This thing was giant. It looked like a Singer sewing machine.
Right.
And I would travel with
the pedals, like that.
Oh, I mean, it was like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a big box thing with a handle. I mean, it literally looked like a sewing machine. I would travel with it. And I literally had more than one person in airports go, why are you traveling with a sewing machine? Because I'd be but they'd only say that to a woman, right? If a guy was carrying, hey, you got a Compaq? Like, that's awesome, yeah. So anyway, that was where computers were at that time. And so I had so what I did with this investment company was I organized all of the investors and their data. So like if you were an investor in a big, syndication of investments, that's the kind of work I did. I organized that and got all the mailings out and the communication and everything. So it was basically called investor relations in a big investment banking company is what I did. And all that was done on these big mainframes. And then I found out about a woman in Denver, Colorado, who was developing a piece of software on a personal computer that would automate all of that information. And I was part of an industry group called the Real Estate Securities Institute. And I had spoken at a couple of their meetings. And so I had met her and she said, hey, I'm developing this software and I'm wondering if you'd like to work with me. So I just jumped at that. So that was like new innovation, something that no one was doing. And she said, we have figured out a way to take these Compaq computers and tie them together with, literally Ethernet ports and create network. And we were like, what's a network? This was really new at the time, because everything was running on these big mainframes. So anyway, long story short, she and I worked together and I basically provided what I thought was the real world side. Like, this is what the investment companies need. And just to give you a quick example, so Public Storage, which is still here today, was one of the clients. And they have a bazillion, as you know, public storage units all over the United States. And different people own each one of those. So they had tens of thousands, if not, now probably millions, but at that time, hundreds of thousands of investors. But let's say you and I are investing in the ones in the Central Valley. You and I might own 15 of these. Like, we started with one, then we bought another one. Okay, so when a letter would go out on the old big mainframes, you and I would get 15 copies of the same investor letter because we own 15 different public storage facilities as an investment. Okay. So the software that I developed was we would, it was basically database management, but consolidate all of that. So when your name comes up, you get one letter saying, hey, Dr. Romero, thank you for being in partnership, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, and here's how that's going. And we were able to consolidate that. So it was things like that this software did. So anyway, I worked on developing that because it was brand new in the industry, super fun. And then we ended up, after 5 years, we sold that whole system to Ernst & Young, which was one of the big 8 accounting firms at the time. So that was a great, innovation, jumped on it, worked on it, got it done. And then I actually traveled all over the country training different big companies on that.
Fantastic.
For quite a while. Yeah, it was fun.
So much of your success in the different industries, profession spaces in which you've been successful speak to application of not just your talents, obviously, but also your acumen as informed by your education. What does the word application mean to you personally in the context of a business education?
It's not always clear, I think, in my experience, how to apply stuff you learn. So we go to school and we learn all this stuff. Okay. And just to backtrack for 1 second, I was a medieval English history major.
I was waiting for that. You mentioned that to me previously.
Talk about something that doesn't, so if you want to know about William the Conqueror in 1066, like, I'm your girl.
So,
right?
you go from Chaucer to
right. So I go from Chaucer to PC networks in the 80s, so like, if you think like what I learned in college has application anywhere except maybe one column of Jeopardy every 20 years, that they have a column on medieval England. So I think sometimes it's hard. That's that piece though, where like the lifelong learner piece, the 1 year always open piece. Because you kind of have to always have that ear open, because you've always just got to be learning. You don't really know, like, who would have known that all of a sudden in the 80s there was going to be computers that fit on someone's desk. Now they fit on our wrist. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't have in the 80s that the computer would be on your wrist right now. Okay. So that's where it's like, you can study, and it's important, obviously, but I think it's that always just being everything is just open to learning always. We just don't know. And not that, like, what I've been able to do is apply just things I've learned in life, things I've learned about people. So I've applied as much as I've just learned by studying people than I have by studying actual technical subjects, So, application is an interesting thing, because I think we draw on we draw on our education for sure, but I think we draw on so many other things. And just if we're the kind of people that are interested in learning and willing to learn new stuff, I think, we can then start applying that as we move on,
It's amazing. I remember the first when we met for lunch prior to the Champions event. I think I shared with you, there was a book that I remember from college. It was titled Jobs for English People and Other Intelligent People. Just for English majors and other intelligent people. That was great. So, there it is. There's proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you feel our students here at Stan State would best be served to know about applying what they learn here with us?
Again, just, it's that first step. So take, what you've learned and make the best first move. It's that first move. I'm doing this with one of my kids right now, is kind of in that place in their life. And, take what you've got. And everybody probably has in their mind something they think they'd like to do. So obviously shoot for that, but just be aware that that may be where you end up, and you may have a brilliant career all the way through in that exact category, in that exact lane. That may be your silo that you live in, and that's amazing. You know what I mean? But just take a first step, but just always be kind of, eyes focused ahead, but then you're always kind of looking, to the right and to the left and up and down to see if there's, other things you can do and grow that might also really interest you. Is just, be willing to be a little bit flexible and open-minded and try stuff and take those risks and ask those questions and seek help. And, just don't get I just always worry sometimes that people are, I'm afraid to change careers, but I really love this, maybe do a side hustle in that and see if you really love it before you jump ship. There's just always like looking to see what else might be out there, I think is important.
Sound practical advice for those of you listening out there. Leadership. What does the word mean to you?
Leadership, that's evolved for me. So, we grow up, and again, this is that group communication thing where I think we have to have all the answers. We can't, don't let them see you sweat. Like, be a strong leader. Like, what does that mean? And I think strong leaders are people. I see things, and I always thought everybody did this. And I was talking to people about this, and they were like, "We don't see stuff." I actually see stuff in my head like a movie. So, like, okay, so if you see yourself like a leader, like you picture yourself at the head of the table, you picture yourself in the front of the troops or behind you. That's the leader on the horse with everybody behind them with their swords. Okay. I don't see that. I see a leader sitting with the people. Like, I don't see myself as a leader. Well, I think there has to be some leadership and like ideas and like organizing meetings and leading meetings, if you will. But to me, the strongest leaders are right in the trenches with the troops, because like I see a leader, someone who's modeling what to do themselves. And I think a lot of people see themselves more up on a pedestal, somehow speaking down to the troops or the team or the group. So leadership to me, and then the next thing right after that is, to me, a great leader listens. And I learned that early on too. I remember at this company that I keep referring to that I was working for first, the guys in the mailroom, and there was two hilarious guys. I mean, they were like my favorite people. They knew everything going. I was like, if I ever ran this place, I just listened to Steve and Ron. Like they know everything. Like they're the guys that I would listen to, So I think we should never, and that's in our businesses. I mean, the people that run our dish pit are like my lifeline. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily everyone's valuable, but the people that sometimes I think, we're the leaders and you're the workers. I think people miss out on a lot of opportunities to build great culture by adopting that format.
So a shout out to Steve and Ron. Everybody find your Steve and Ron out there. And I love your musings on leadership. It started off medieval. We've got people on horses with swords and people behind them with swords and presumably horses. But the servant leadership aspect of it. So if the person who is supposed to make the duck confit tonight is calling in, you're making the duck confit.
Right. I've had to go in and make a lot of duck confit at 2:00 in the morning. Yeah. No. So, I mean, you absolutely, and I have, running through the event with a plunger in my hand. So yeah, no, I mean, you have to be willing, and I do. But see, like for me, like I'm kind of a sick puppy because like, I love that. Like I'd rather be like, I go to as a guest to events, like to fundraisers and things. And I'm like, can I just go work on the plating line? Like I just, I know I could get this dinner out faster if I was, if I was facilitating the plating line. But so no, I think I like being in the trench with my team. You know what I mean? To me, that's like what it's about. I mean, it's fun and like they get a kick. And like sometimes guests will come back in our kitchen. They'll be like, what are you doing back here? It's like, are you kidding me? Like I'm the expo tonight back here, So I think the team appreciates that. And, it's like I would not ask them to do something I wouldn't do myself. So I think that's important.
What do you feel maybe the differences between what makes a good business leader and a good community leader?
Yeah, so the community is a whole different ballgame, I kind of think. I mean, the need, I just, I'm almost overwhelmed every time I talk about this. The need in our community is so great. And there are some wonderful community leaders out there. But having said that, I would love to see more business leaders become community leaders because, again, I think that they have so much power to affect really significant change pretty quickly and without a ton of effort. So I don't know that all business leaders realize the power that they have to make very small moves that would move mountains in the community. I think, there's sort of a wonderful group of people that just, put all their time and effort into the nonprofit sector. They're on boards, they do stuff, but I think being a community leader requires just a slightly different, you have to see yourself differently. I think business leaders, clearly they're at the helm of their ships. Sure. They've got their teams. It's comfortable for them. They get it. They're in charge. They've done it forever. There's sort of a comfort in the walls of your company. You know how things work, good, bad, or indifferent, but you get it. When you go out into the community, I think there's more unknown. So people aren't really sure, like, well, what's going to be expected? I mean, they want me to just write a big check, or do they want me to volunteer? Uh-huh. So I think it's less known and predictable, which is what I find really interesting, because what I like doing on the community side is going out and just literally talking to the end user. What do you got? What does this nonprofit need? What do these people in the airport district need? A really great story, just really quickly. A friend of mine who's just an amazing, amazing businesswoman. She's outstanding. I mean, she's just like way off the charts in terms of that. When the Haiti, had their horrible earthquake, she went there, and she said, and she speaks the language, and she speaks many languages, and she, and not to be disrespectful about Operation Shoebox and all the wonderful, aid things that come. But like, she went down and spoke in the language to the women sitting in tents with their kids. It's like, what do you need? And they're like, we don't need one more shoebox full of toothpaste and toothbrush. You know what I mean? She goes, we are literally being attacked at night. Our daughters are being ripped out of the tents by their legs. I mean, it was horrendous circumstances there. And she goes, we need telephones, we need communication, we need central places where we can seek help. We need to know when food arrives because it's 15 camps over and we don't know when it's there. And so she has connections with the people that own the telecommunications service in South America. And she called this guy who's a friend of her husband's, and they dropped poles and put communication, and the women suddenly within 90 days had cell phones in their hands. So when people came to drag their girls away, they called the guy 5 tents down who, like she solved problems, So that was a person taking like her business skills and applying it to a critical need in a community, and I think that's just such a vivid example. But I think a lot of times businesses aren't sure what they can do exactly to serve the needs of the community, So I feel like if we could somehow help businesses understand and maybe help show them what their business does or how they work or their teams could help the community. Some do a great job. I mean, there's whole companies that their teams go out and serve the community. It's part of their culture, and they do a beautiful job. But I think if we could get more people to really understand exactly how to do that and affect change, we could really make some headway with a lot of needs.
Thank you for the vivid example. It truly brings to life the possibilities that exist. I've been fortunate to travel within this community for 10 years, and I've seen people in the business sector move into the nonprofit sector. It speaks to acumen, obviously decision-making, leadership, and sort of a shift between, and it's one of the reasons I admire you so much among so many, is that you're, once again, to use, my wife says I use French way too much in common parlance, but there I go again. Your raison d'etre is
right.
Profit motive on one side, and on the other side, impact and outcome. And there, you're living proof that these skills can be transferable, and it's always remarkable.
Absolutely. And are so needed. I mean, that's the thing. And it's just, but I do think that, there's a need for just a liaison.
Mm-hmm. There we go. See, it's so easy. I don't get it.
We need a liaison yeah. Okay. So we need a liaison to help, because again, it's not always obvious how to do that, but once you can affect, those connections, they're so powerful. They really, and so fulfilling. I mean, that's the thing too, that, when you're able to do that and you show a company and and their staff, I mean, how beautiful is that? And it's so empowering to them as well. It's not just a one-way street. Like it, obviously helps the person in need, but it's so, my goodness, return tenfold to the people doing it. It's so rewarding.
My hope is always that people in the business sector having, or at least have, you were talking about self-awareness and knowing what's going on, if only to find tangential roads for other possibilities in your career, see that there is, and I'm not trying to downplay the importance of the profit motive. Certainly the economy, capitalist society is based on these things. But when you add the dimensionality of this, of helping the women in those tents, of helping out in the community to solve problems like food deserts, language barriers, and what have you, it changes. It changes a color, it changes communities. It truly does.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Good. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, enjoying it. So nice to chat with you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, it really, but those make a big difference. Yeah, my daughter sent us a big box of those, and they're great. Yeah, they really are good. Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, they're good. Definitely. Okay. Terrific.
How have you seen Stan State evolve over the years?
So I think Stan State is such a treasure in our community, and we're so lucky to have Stan State there. I feel like it just continues to grow and to be just a terrific resource for everybody in our community, really. I mean, I know so many people that have taken advantage of classes there, but, certainly for the student population, but just as kind of a beacon of, of leadership as well. I mean, the whole program there, I love what you guys are doing with the entrepreneurship program, but there's just so many other aspects that I just think are just a huge asset to the community. And I feel like it's, really grown and, improved. And I mean, the campus continues to evolve, and it all just, we're really lucky to have it here.
What's your first thought when you think of Stan State?
I think of it as a resource because, again, I came here long after, I was in school, but I just feel like it is, such an asset in terms of providing skilled workers for our workforce. I mean, I hear so many great things about the students that come out of there, and the different, I sit on the Opportunity Stanislaus board, and they're constantly talking about, what a great partnership it is with the different businesses that sit at that table. And just also how the leadership of the university is does such a great job out in the community promoting what Stan State does and the strong programs that they have. So I think we're so lucky to have, it pumping out all these wonderful potential employees for all of us.
I don't often get the honor of speaking on behalf of an entire institution, but thank you. Thank you.
You guys are doing the great work.
What are your thoughts on the Warrior Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program and its place in the region going forward?
So I think, first of all, it's so exciting, and thank you for your incredible leadership and what an inspiring person you are, because, I mean, they're very lucky to have you. And it takes somebody like you with the passion that you have and the knowledge to make something like this work. But just the little bit that I've interacted with you and some of the students, I've had a handful of people from the champions be in touch with me. There's one in particular that I meet with on a regular basis that approached me. So they're the students that are involved in it are outstanding and inspiring to me. And I love hearing from them. And like I said, several have reached out.
That's great.
And actually met with me, which has been great, and kind of helped one get a little summer internship type thing. So great. I think it's fantastic. And again, I just one of the things that I always stress when I'm talking to people is that we have to help each other. And there are so many people that helped me along the way as I was learning and growing and evolving in my professional career. And just I think if we can just keep encouraging the people in this program to reach out, there's so many people in our community that I think would be giving of time and advice and guidance to them, to just, encourage them to keep asking and keep trying things. And, I think it's a great program.
Thank you. Thank you. Bottom of my heart, thank you. You touched on something wonderful and valuable, among other things. If you would describe the feeling of speaking to those early career professionals, the people coming out of Stan State, for example, graduating, and what it means to your feelings about your career today.
What it's all about to me, because again, like I said, there were a lot of people that helped me. I'm a terrible person asking for help. So it was hard for me to ask for help. And then you'd ask for help and get just this, gold mine of information and all of this wonderful advice and guidance. So, I haven't forgotten that. So, I look at some of these young students and I, can't help but be like, gosh, if I could just help them a fraction of what people help me. So that really motivates me. And they're so dear, they come with these, their questions prepared and suggestions and ideas. And like they've run things by me. One of them just sent me something the other day and had me look at it. And I mean, these things are so good that they're coming out with. I mean, they've learned wonderful skills through you and through the program, and they're presenting them. And the looks on their faces is like, makes my day. It's like the best part of my day, is to see how hard they're working. And they really have just an excellent basis for what they're trying to do. And it's just such a joy to have these conversations and, maybe try to give them some suggestions, but they're really pretty spot on, with the questions they're asking and the directions they're going. So, I mean, it's easy for me. It's just encouraging them to keep going and then to try things. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Like, that's to me, the key is you just keep refining as you go. Just because something doesn't work out the way you thought doesn't mean that's a bad thing. That's a great thing because that's, you can check that one off the list and we'll try something else, So for me, it's like, that's the best part of my day. If I have an opportunity to interact with, one of these young people who are planning or thinking of being an entrepreneur, it's great.
And now they know. And they know that you know. And we could keep that going forever.
Right.
Who is Ann Endsley?
I don't know. I'm just in there pitching every day. I mean, some days I don't know who I am, or where I'm going and what I'm doing. But I think I'm just a person who I am kind of I'm either an Energizer bunny or I'm that I hate clowns, by the way. Like I have a serious phobia against clowns, but maybe I'm one of those clowns that just keeps bouncing back up. Those really scary looking clowns. But
lots of people do.
Yeah, hate clowns. I really have a bad fear of that.
There was somebody who was running around doing that a couple of Halloweens ago.
Know.
Do you remember that?
No, I couldn't. My kids they couldn't send it to me fast enough because they're like, check this out. No, because I have like everybody's kids.
That's cruel. See, that's cruel. No,
they're like,
and I thought to myself, man, you're doing that, running around dressed up like that. I'm sure you know if this is the right neighborhood, like the right area to do that in, man.
Right? No, that was so creepy. And it was such a creepy, clown look too. Everything about that was just like, oh my gosh. But so I don't really know. Some days, I don't know. I'm kind of a goofball. I just get up and each day and try. You just deal with what comes at you. I think that's probably who I am. Yeah.
Does Ann Endsley's story begin the moment that she realizes at 25 that something is rotten in Denmark at that organization, or where does her story begin? Do you feel in the biography of your life? My
story started really long time ago. Like I said, it sounds weird. I'm old. I'm 63 years old. So, but I have really clear memories of not like when I was 2, but I knew that I wanted to help people when I was little. You know what I mean? I knew.
Really?
I knew when Julie Andrews, went to Captain Von Trapp's family when I was 5 that I could be Maria. You know what I mean?
That's wonderful.
Do that, and I played the guitar and I spun around in my backyard with my guitar case. I knew I could beat the captain and 6 children. I knew I could do that. You know what I'm saying? So when I was little, so I always knew I could help people. So again, and I think kind of, even though I've had these businesses and everything, the reason I have these operating businesses is to employ. And I do love cooking. I do love events. I love flowers. I love, I need to go to Vintage Dishes Anonymous because I have this obscene collection of vintage china. I love all that stuff, but I've created these businesses that I love because I want to employ people. So everything I've kind of done has been always kind of guided, I guess, by the desire to help people, whether it's in business or then, in the community and stuff like that. And I knew that when I was really young.
Where did Ann then see herself now?
So it's kind of the same. I'm kind of an old broken record, I think. It's not really changed. It's just, and again, that's the part about you sort of, you're there and there's a movie coming at you. So as things come at me and as things have come my way, again, whether it's in business or whether it's just a person can come my way that has a big impact on my life or changes in some way. So I think, today it's the things I'm working on today, but those might be different next year, type of thing. So I think, and that's that just always being willing to evolve based on what's happening. And I think, my bellwether, my guiding light is just, you've got to try to make the best and right decision on each, not to say that you always do, but there's just sort of a gut, the difference between right and wrong. And, don't get me wrong, all kinds of crazy, opportunities come my way, ooh, maybe do this. And it's okay, that doesn't feel right. That's not something I feel comfortable doing. So I'm super disciplined. If something is not right, I'm out. You know what I mean? And so that's a guiding light for me. And then other than that, I'm sort of bring it on. Let's see what we can do, let's see how I can help or not help, maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I'm just sort of always open. I think my heart is really open to the possibilities of where the needs are out there. And they take the form of all different types of things, and I'm always just kind of, and I say this, I don't say this a lot, but I believe this with every, God puts me in places on purpose. I open to whatever God's will is. And I know he's oh, we got to put her here. I just know that I am put in the path of things I'm supposed to be in.
So so then it becomes a balance of, or what it sounds like to me is it becomes a balance of predestination, divine will, and agency. No?
Right. No, I'd say that's accurate. Yeah.
Who were Ann's earliest allies? In my experience, these sorts of instincts, or the ability to trust those kinds of instincts, are nurtured. They're inspired by people. Who would you say Ann's earliest allies were?
Yeah. So that, again, I know I talk about and I love my mom and I were best buddies. So, I mean, she had a huge influence on me. But, and my dad passed away very young. He passed away at 55. And so I think because of that, like, so I wasn't very old when he died. So my family were my earliest allies, and they really instilled in me, I think, well, certainly my faith and just my, you can kind of, do whatever, do whatever you want to do type mentality. But I think, my dad was the type of person that could have been probably more successful, but he brought everybody with him, like he wasn't a leader, like, hey, I'm the leader. He was a leader because he had people, like rows of people on both sides of him holding their hands and taking them with them. So that had a huge impact on me.
I can't imagine a world where that wouldn't be true. Yeah. What would Ann now say to Ann at 25 to start a conversation?
I think I'd say kind of what I did, which is, follow what you know is right. Don't be afraid to take risk. That you can always pick yourself up and dust yourself off and keep going. And, things are scary and things don't work out sometimes. But, if you sort of walk an honest path and try to do the right thing for the most part. And again, don't get me wrong. I mean, I, had a lot of things where they didn't go well or they didn't go right. Or I did make the right decision. So it's not, no fairyland over here. So I think I would just tell myself to just, again, keep going and do the best you can, and don't beat yourself up too bad if it doesn't go well.
We've talked about that springboard moment, if you want to call it that, from what you were doing in the service of organizations and then going forward to create the ventures that would be aligned with your worldview, your ethics, your morals. Looking back, how would you say that entrepreneurship itself altered the course of your life in intangible ways? We're not talking about profit at all, just personally in intangible ways.
Yeah. I mean, being an entrepreneur, to me, being an entrepreneur is just creating opportunities, frankly. I mean, for yourself, but also for others. So that's how I kind of see it. But it's that ability to kind of make your own calls, which is a double-edged sword. I mean, yes, you're in charge and you can, choose to work with ethical people and that kind of thing. But it's also a huge burden because you are responsible now for all kinds of people's lives. Like if things don't work out and you can't make payroll, they don't pay rent, they don't feed their kids, their kids don't get school supplies and that, so there's benefits, but it comes with such huge responsibility as well. It's not like you're like, well, what's the coolest part? Well, it's not cool when you can't, when you're responsible for people and things aren't going well. So the whole entrepreneur piece is wonderful, but it does come, it's not just like always sunshine and rainbows, type of thing. What
have Greens Gather, all your ventures, come to mean in the telling of your own story?
So, again, I love these businesses and I love what they do. But again, my main reason for creating them is to create job opportunities and respectful places for people to work and a culture that nourishes people. And, I'm creating family environments. Like in all my companies, family comes first. Like if your kid has a baseball game or your daughter has a ballet recital or your mom's having surgery. I mean, family comes first. So these businesses have given me an opportunity to show people that you can work for a person that cares about you. You can work in a respectful environment where, any type of harassment is not tolerated. Any type of dishonesty is not tolerated. So like what I loved about being an entrepreneur is to be able to create that. I mean, it's in our hands. It's in our power as entrepreneurs and business owners to be able to craft these types of work experiences for people. And, that's where I think, I differ from a lot of people. That's another class I'd like to teach is how to have your company be profitable and sustainable. But I mean, we're at work more than we're at home, most of us, you know what I mean? And so if you can create an environment that is nurturing people as much as a family is, and even maybe more importantly, because you're teaching them a skill, but then treating them like family, how powerful is that? And I wish more companies and businesses could operate like that. And, I think one of the misconceptions is that companies like that maybe aren't as profitable and that type of thing. But I beg to differ with that. I think when your people are respected and when they're protected, and if there's any shenanigans going on, you're in there dealing with it and working things out with people, which happens almost daily in our companies. I mean, there's always conflict. It's a family, but if you can manage through those with respect and love and, redemption and forgiveness and all that kind of thing, you can build really powerful, profitable businesses doing that.
To what degree are our businesses an extension of ourselves, past or present?
Yeah, see, I think I look at it as a huge extension of me. And I don't know, that's an interesting thing to think about. So I think of it as like a direct, like umbilical cord to me. Like I feel like if my companies are not being run as respectful, amazing places to work, that's a reflection of me. It'd be interesting to ask, and not to, but, companies where there is sort of a tough hierarchy, or maybe there's kind of a person at the, not super warm and fuzzy person, if they see it that way, if they see that, if their company is being run in kind of a rough way, not very compassionate, not really caring about the employees, if they see, it'd be interesting to ask that question to somebody and see what, that maybe doesn't have a super warm, fuzzy culture going on, if they see that as a reflection of, I absolutely see it as a reflection of me.
I was waiting for you to use the word draconian, but.
Okay, thank you. I was waiting for it. The word tyrannical I was trying to kind of wordsmith my way through that, but but it would be interesting, right? I mean, to see if they're like, well, do you think that's be interesting?
I've seen the diametric opposite of your value system as expressed through people's organizations, where it's much more transactional and less transformational. So it varies, at least from what I've seen. Who do you see yourself as now that is different from how you saw yourself then?
So back then, again, so let's, look at the timeline. So that was in the 80s. So in the 80s, being a woman in business in the 80s, you had to prove yourself like so much more than I think we do now. I think it's better now. But then when I look back, it's like you had to almost work harder and stay later and work more hours and be more productive and all of that. And the work-life balance was, zero, because you worked full time and all the time. And luckily at that point, I wasn't married, didn't have kids, but my friends that did really struggled, with trying to do it all type of thing. So I think that because of a much better sort of understanding and appreciation for work-life balance, we're different. I know I'm different, even just in the last 10 years. And I do say this sometimes when I'm speaking to people. So those of you who are listening, who are women with kids and trying to do it all, those years with your kids go really fast. And, I thought that I was modeling, excellent working behavior and work-life balance. And, my kids are now in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're like, yeah, we wish you'd been around more, Mom. And I didn't expect to hear that at the time. I thought I was like kind of doing it all. But anyway, I say now that I'm past it, and all my kids are in therapy. No, I'm just kidding. But for abandonment issues, no. That you think you're at all the games and doing everything, but wait till they're 30 and tell you that they're all in therapy for abandonment. Okay,
dark comment.
Yeah, no, but I mean, but definitely go to all do it, because again, that's why I'm trying to create companies that allow for that, because let's just face it, guys, it's our lives, right? It's our families, it's our children, and how much better are we going to be at our work if we feel good about what's going on at home? Whereas if you're, feeling terrible about being gone and stressed because you can't do, basic family things because you have to work. I mean, why should we be penalized and our families be penalized for that? Why can't there be a way to accomplish what you need to at work, get your goals done, get it done on time? And like I always tell my team, we agree that we have to get from point A to point B. How you get there, you can walk, crawl, ride a bike, pogo stick, swim, roll on the ground, as long as you get there, we're good, but if you need to go do something and come back, that's fine. We just have to get from A to B by 5 o'clock or whatever the goal is. So if I were to look back, like that would have been very foreign to me when I was 25.
I think we also, just an opinion, people much more brilliant than I'll ever be have sort of, I suppose, disputed the work-life balance imagery and likened it more to a work-life blend, to where, especially in the entrepreneurial spaces, that my work becomes a part of my life. I blend this sort of in and out, or in whatever, and to use a culinary reference, and this pun is fully intended, to sort of blend that to taste. Is it? Mm-hmm. Are you finding that more possible now than you did then?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. And I mean, several things. First of all, the fact we're on a Zoom call today, which is amazing. The pandemic, while, very difficult to handle and was really a hard thing for a lot of people, I mean, we realize we can all get through and do business not sitting in the same room together. So if you have to be at home and tending to something, you can't, it's not as, this would be absolutely unheard of in the 80s. I mean, not only did you have to be at work, you had to be there till 9, 10 o'clock at night, or you were a lightweight, you know what I mean? And you had to be there at 6 a.m, and you had to be there on Saturday. And I mean, and especially if you were a woman at that time, it was a real thing. I mean, it was, if you showed any, it's like, are you going, when are you coming back? I mean, it was very, just having your own time. You almost were embarrassed to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's changed a lot. I really do.
What does it mean to be a woman in leadership in the current business climate?
So I think it's a huge advantage, just because, well, I don't even know if it's the word advantage. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's like that's my joy, honestly, is like helping people in the community. So for me, it's like my fun, you know what I mean? Because what's better than using anything you have, whether it's a talent or a resource or something, to make somebody else's life better? I mean, what a high that is, to me at least. So I think women tend to, we're just, I don't know, but this thing where like women are more nurturing. I don't know. I know some men that are pretty nurturing. I don't know. But I just think women sort of by nature in the community can just move mountains. I mean, there's women that I'm currently working with, and they're just absolute heroes. They're just, they just can't do enough. I just think women really kind of do get a lot of stuff done.
Well, yeah, I mean,
just kind of make stuff happen.
I teach an international business class, and one of the things that I focus on for a final practical of my students is look at places in the world where women are summarily not allowed to participate in the formal economy. Forget the morality of it for a second. Look at the actual data. Look at the impact on the economy, GDP, all these things. Mm-hmm. And then look at the moral side of it, the empathic, we're all in this together, the sense of community. And ask yourself why these things don't happen more often. To your wonderful point. It was inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah.
It reinforces a lot of the stuff that we try to do at the academic level.
Yeah.
What does intentionality mean to you?
I think, again, I'm old. I've been at this a long time. So, let me just back up to when I was younger. I think it's harder sometimes. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. I mean, I guess you can have you can have intention and purpose and be doing things for a specific reason. I just have found that as I've gotten older, it's become clearer to me, maybe not only what I can do, but what I should do. I don't know. So there's more intentionality now as I've gotten older and had more time to kind of experience a lot of different things. I found that harder when I was younger because I felt like I was just going in a million different directions really quickly, and I didn't have the time really to have the perspective. I just, as I've gotten older, I feel like I've been able to be more intentional with things and thoughtful and discerning, I guess, in some ways.
When and how did you feel most creative in your career?
I think each time we start, we're constantly looking at ways to branch out our businesses into synergistic, we call them sister companies. So I think we're our most creative when we sit there and we say, okay, this is what we have. And, in our case, we had this specialty food market. And then we're like, well, what can we do now? Well, let's start doing prepared food for people. So whenever we're adding on an appendage or an arm or a sister company or a new project or something, then I think that's what, and what I like to do in terms of the creative piece is really get a bunch of people involved in that process. So I feel like I'm my most creative when I have a team of people that all kind of are on the same page, but bring different strengths, different perspectives to the table. That's the really exciting creative part for me. I mean, to me, creativity is like a lot of people, best minds, all bringing their ideas to the table. And we do that, when we're thinking of launching something new.
Adversity, being on the ropes, it's all part of the story. Take me back to the first moment you realize you may not be able to deal with this challenge, whatever that challenge was.
Yeah. Okay, well, that happens a lot, and that's the thing. I always thank you for bringing that because, you do these conversations and these speeches and all this kind of thing. And it seems like, wow, that seemed like really easy for her. It is so freaking hard. And like our team looks at each other from time to time and we're like, this is hard as hell. Like, this is so hard. Like, this is really hard. We just look at each other. We also always work with a sense of humor. Like, humor is the only thing that gets us through because lots and lots and lots of things don't work out. And you just have to kind of be like, okay, like that was really hard and that like totally didn't work. And like, I don't usually share this, but it's kind of, and since students are primary. So we have this friend of ours and like they have it's a catering company in Canada and they're great and everything. And they just have this, it's formally printed. It's like beautifully done. And it's this like card and they send it with a food basket. And it's when something goes wrong with and it's like, we are sorry we sucked. And it's done in calligraphy. Like, it's so funny. And I mean, and like when it's like the job's late or like they got somebody's sandwich wrong or something, but like stuff is so hard, you know what I mean? And lots of things don't work. So like so Patty just came up with this, like, we're sorry we sucked, like gift that they send, to clients when they drop the ball. But yeah, so no, stuff is really hard. And again, I think it's how you handle things. Like we have things go wrong. A lot of times I'll be the one that picks up the phone. It's like, we are so sorry that like this didn't happen. You didn't get this. You got the wrong color. You got the wrong thing. We eat a lot of crow. We eat a lot of profit. I mean, you do what you have to do to make it right. But again, it goes back to what I said earlier, like bad things are going to happen, and you hope you kind of learn from those. You hope they don't repeat themselves a lot, but you have to just kind of dust yourself off and keep going, because what are you going to do? Like fold the company because something, didn't work well. If something really fails, and I mean fails, again, tough and it's, hard and it can be a big financial drain. We've had things that didn't work financially and we've lost money doing them. And again, you just have to be like, you chalk that up to experience. You try to make different decisions. You just chalk it up to experience and to, you tried and it didn't work, and you do beat yourself up. I mean, don't get me wrong. You don't just be like, oh, well, that was fun. You do. It's very hard and devastating sometimes, especially if other people are casualties with you. That's the thing for me that's always would be really hard. But at the same time, you get up every day and you try to make the best decision you can. It helps when things really don't work out that you did the best you could. I mean, if you sell your soul to the devil and stuff goes bad, you're kind of like, geez, that was a tough lesson. Maybe I should do the right thing next time. And that might not have happened. So that's another thing when I'm mentoring people, I always say, like, you don't want to look back and say I made the wrong decision or I did something illegal or I, did something unethical and have it fail. That's very tough, I think. And that's why if you always kind of operate with your heart in the right place, it helps mitigate if something does go catastrophically wrong, that at least you did what you thought you could do.
Onto the ventures, not the musical group, although they were pretty awesome. I'm the wrong person to invite to any dinner party if the subject turns to music. I collect vinyl and I got a lot to say about it, so try to avoid me. If you were to set the scene as if it were a play, a dramatic performance, how would you set the stage for the inspiration that led to your starting Four Season Farms?
Are you familiar with the music O Fortuna?
Absolutely. So the opera.
Okay. So
that Carl Orff.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so that's kind of like, yeah. So that was kind of, Four Seasons, because that was so Four Seasons was supposed to be, it's interesting, supposed to be this whole like place you went, and it was a organic farm with a cooking school. You took kids out and they pulled carrots out of the ground, and then they came into this cooking school and made carrot salad, and then you went out to the pizza garden and you got your tomatoes, your basil, your garlic, and then you came in and made dough and then put it in the wood-fired pizza oven that's still out at the farm. It's still out there. It was supposed to be this whole experience, but there was a zoning issue. And so it was able to be a farm, but not this big group of buildings and everything because it's zoned ag. And that was a whole thing. So it started out as this beautiful dream with this idyllic place. And then O Fortuna starts playing and you're told by the county that there's no zoning for it. And the guy with the Viking hat shows up and tells you that you can't build your cooking school out there.
So we've gone from Italian opera to German opera in one. Okay.
Right. And Wagnerian meeting with the county. Yeah. Who I hope are listening, you dead. No, I'm just kidding. Most of them are either dead or retired at this point.
If nothing else, anyway, people are now listening to more Wagner than they did at the beginning of this podcast. So, I mean... There's that.
Yeah, it was. So it was. Yeah, those were not good times. But anyway, but then we took the lemons and we made lemonade and we turned it into Green's Market, where we had an organic farm and then we needed a place to sell it. So again, it's just another lesson in entrepreneurship. Like you thought you were going to have this beautiful place where people would go and grow and learn healthy eating and have a healthy eating institute was part of it and all this great stuff. And none of that came to fruition because it wasn't zoned properly. So, big rain cloud on my dream, and that didn't happen. So then we took it and we turned it into something else, which now has evolved into all these businesses. So, it's a great example of you thought you were doing this and then you got dealt this bad hand and you turned it into something else.
And there it is, folks. You have now the distinction of being the first and perhaps last guest, not a prestidigitator, but I'm just going to say it, that would bring up Wagner, Carl Orff, O Fortuna in an entrepreneurship podcast. Color me amazed. The evolution of Green's Market from specialty food market to full service catering company and event venue must have come in iterations, as you were just describing. Which do you recall as being the breakthrough moments in that evolution?
So again, we have this crazy farm that we can't build any buildings. So let's do a market. And so we built a market to bring all the produce in and produce from other organic farms and beautiful organic meats and cheeses from Europe and all this beautiful stuff that we couldn't buy here because we could only get them at the Ferry Building in San Francisco. So we do that. And then it was set up like a market with like a beautiful counter and some prepared foods and a bakery. And then the very first day we opened, someone said, "Where do we sit down?" And we were like, "It's a market. Like, I don't even make eye contact with people at the market when I go, you know what I mean? And you want to sit here and it's all Metro shelves and like bakery cases." And so that day we said, okay, I said, "Does anyone have a pickup truck?" Yes. So I jumped in somebody else's pickup truck and went to Lowe's and bought outdoor furniture. And we pushed some of the Metro shelving back and threw 4 metal outdoor patio tables on the floor so people could, quote, sit in the middle of the market, which we did not expect. So stuff just came at us. And I remember the first day we didn't have enough. We only bought, I think, like 4 chairs per table. So we had 5 desks in a back room with like mismatched chairs on wheels that were from a warehouse that we had. They were horrible. And more people needed to sit. So we just wheeled our office chairs out onto the floor and people sat at the Lowe's outdoor furniture and our stupid little like office chairs on wheels at tables. So anyway, it evolved because we just, things just came at us. Like, can we sit in the middle of the market and drink coffee and eat, croissants? And we're like,
and
sure.
The answer is always yes.
Yeah. All right. And so now it became like Green's Market where you sat and ate food instead. I mean, can you imagine picnic tables in the middle of Safeway?
Right.
I mean, it was, who wants, right. But anyway, so that's, yeah.
There was, it reminds me, I mean, you guys were revolutionary, evolutionary. I remember there was a charming sandwichery in Southern California. It was just a deli, and similar to your point, just they had some chairs and they threw it out there. And just how much better is your sandwich on a nice day sitting out on some patio furniture? I mean, Making lemonade out of lemons, yeah. But still,
Right, exactly.
the meal delivery format for Underground Kitchen had to have had included in its conception anyway how it would be received by the community in our due diligence and our analyses, our environmental scans. What were the sketches in your mind like in the ideation phase?
Right. So the Underground Kitchen was such a interesting venture. But what it was, again, was just simply responding to customer need. I mean, it was like meeting the need because we had people that couldn't get to the market. We had people that, oh my gosh, I mean, really as specific as people who lost their wives, like all of a sudden you're 75 years old, your wife passed away. She's been cooking for you for, 55 years and she's gone, and your daughter lives in Milwaukee and you have no one, so it's like, how do we get food to so people were calling, can you send food to my parents, or just busy moms. It's like, I just need to stock my refrigerator and my freezer with some lasagnas, enchiladas, and some, cookie dough balls or whatever, so I can feed my family. Or I'm on a very special diet. We cook a lot for people with different medical conditions, because my husband's in the medical field. So like, a heart healthy diet, or people that do, different types of food preferences, low sodium, that type of thing. We cook for all different things. So it was people who just needed to get good, clean, healthy food in their houses. So we had Green's Table for a while too, for 5 years. That was also a place where you could sit and eat. And when that closed, there became more of a need for Underground Kitchen because people were used to picking up food there. And so we just transferred it to an online ordering, delivery pickup, format.
The event collection. Vision before launch, if we could go back to that, and your vision as we speak.
Yeah. So again, okay, so Green's Kitchen that's cooking all of this for the market and for everything for Underground Kitchens down on 10th Street. Okay. And then it had a few meeting rooms, and those meeting rooms were booked all the time. So they weren't large rooms. They were like baby showers and rehearsal dinners and, 30, 40, 50 people type things. So that was great. And we knew there was a market for that so that you could, get great food, and we have a liquor license, and, you could go have a fun little party, and it was booked constantly. So we knew there was a need for meeting space. And the building next door was owned by a friend of ours, and he kept trying to, he kept coming over and saying, hey, you need to buy my building. And the building, to be completely honest, was in absolutely horrible shape. So I kept looking at it like, I can't visualize owning this building. And so finally one day he came, he said, I'm dumping the building. So if you want it, it's like now or never. And he goes, just go look at the upstairs, the second floor, which I'd never seen. And I didn't know this, but the second floor had been completely redone and was all set up. It'd been a recording studio, actually. It was chopped into really beautifully done spaces that we could immediately turn into meeting space, additional meeting space. And then, of course, the first floor, which was this crazy gaming, I don't know what it was. It looked like a bad CSI episode. It was horrible. It was so bad. And so we just ended up gutting that and then turned that into a huge venue. So now we've got this giant venue that seats 350 people. So it's like, well, now we need tables, chairs, linens, glasses. We're going to do weddings and huge galas and nonprofit events. And so we need stuff. We can't afford to rent it. So what I did is I started going to auctions of other event companies that were going out of business. And it just so happened, and this is like where I say God puts me in these crazy places for a reason. A huge, huge conglomerate event rental company was going through bankruptcy right when we did the venue. And so they had auctions all over Southern California, the Sun Belt, Arizona, New Mexico, and we just followed those auctions and cherry picked through the assets and were able to acquire the assets for just pennies on the dollar. And so because of that auction opportunity, I was able to build event collection like on a shoestring. And then again, the reason that I was so excited to do that is because we could then offer these items at a very cost-effective price. So the average young couple who's trying to get married, the average nonprofit who's trying to raise as much money for their cause can rent these items for much less than they would have to elsewhere. So it just gave me the opportunity to share that. The benefit of being able to acquire these assets for a very discounted amount, I can pass that savings on to, the community.
Remarkable. I want to ask you about second chances and impact. You made a profound impact in your efforts to provide opportunities for individuals with prior criminal records through your ventures. Can you share with us the impact on your businesses, the individuals hired, and yourself as a person?
Right. So in the last year and a half, this has been my passion project. Like, this has been really, honestly, one of the most exciting things I've done as a business owner. And I just cannot express this strongly enough to anyone who hears this, that this type of thinking is where we desperately need to go. And I feel blessed that it was brought again. I feel like God put this in front of me. And anyway, so winding the tape back, there at our farm, we have an organic farm in Modesto. And over the 12, 13 years that I've owned that farm, there's always been a handful of formerly incarcerated there. So this is something that's been a passion of mine, because again, who's going to give these men and women a chance, right? I mean, it's very difficult for them to find employment. But the farm is perfect. I mean, it's good work, it's honest work, it's hard work, but it's the kind of work that's very therapeutic and very healing. And we build a team out there, and it's a family. I mean, it's a true family out there. And I've worked really hard to kind of create that. And then about a year ago, one of our supervisors, Terry Withrow, posted that he had been looking at this project in Southern California called Homeboy Industries. And I have followed Homeboy Industries for 30 years. And it's founded by a Catholic priest, Father Greg Boyle. And it is just an absolute beacon of hope in the night for formerly incarcerated. And Father Boyle has created this community. They have a cafe. It's really interesting. They have very similar business we have. They have a catering company. They have a cafe. They have a t-shirt shop. They have all kinds of, they call them enterprise businesses geared for formerly incarcerated. But in addition to that, they have, counseling services and life skills, and just, it's a whole consortium of services to help formerly incarcerated men and women integrate into society, rebuild their lives, and not reoffend. I mean, that's basically what they do. So Terry and some of the people in our county had been studying this, and we're going to bring it to Stanislaus County. So Terry made this just brief post. I think I saw it like 3:00 in the morning. I was like, couldn't sleep and was looking at stuff. And I literally sent him, I said, Terry, I know all about this program. I didn't know that it was being brought to our county. So I learned what they were doing. There's a gentleman here called Michael Baldwin who runs an agency called Legacy Alliance. And I met Michael, and like, my life changed. I mean, the work that they've been doing to serve the formerly incarcerated men and women in our community is just heroic. And so I was like, sign me up. Like, what can I do? So we immediately started employing a number of people from the Legacy program. And then our families donated the building where the program will be located. It's on Calaveras Avenue in Modesto. And we're just working night and day to bring this whole thing, to fruition, and to provide just incredible opportunities, housing, counseling, job opportunities to formerly incarcerated. And I mean, Michael is just one of the most unbelievable men I've ever met. He was, serving a life sentence. He was paroled to this county. And while he was in prison, he became a mentor to many people. And he has basically put this whole thing, together with a team of people. And so we're working really, really hard to try to educate as many other business owners as we can, and people who are going to start companies, to give these folks a chance. These people are the most grateful, hardworking people, and they will inspire your existing employees like you can't believe. I mean, we have them in our kitchen, we have them in our logistics company. We have at least 20. We've had over 34 different people out at the farm. There's any given day, there's 15 to 20 out there now. They've completely brought our farm back. They're just golden to me. They're just they inspire me. They're what gets me up in the morning. I mean, they're just amazing people. I keep trying to explain to business owners what a gift it is to bring them into our businesses, because first of all, most of us know people that have been incarcerated or have personal experience. I mean, many people in our company, we hire a lot of moms, single moms, and a lot of those moms, that their children's dads are incarcerated. You know what I mean? So when you bring these men and women into your businesses, they're so inspiring because first of all, they're doing everything they can to put their lives back together, but it gives hope to the people that are in your businesses that have family members that are incarcerated. There's a safe place for them to come out to and not go back to their, prior ways,
Facilitating.
It's been great. It's terrific.
Facilitating redemption is the very definition of God doing God's work, it seems, or at least from here.
It is absolutely God's work on earth, but they are also bringing God to us. In other words, if you go out to the fringes, and a lot of us are afraid to do that. You're afraid, like, I don't know what's out there. I don't know. People ask me all the time, aren't you afraid? And it's like, no, because one of the most poignant things I can share with you is I was speaking at a Rotary meeting, and when I speak, I bring the legacy people with me. I never go by myself. I bring them because I want people to see them, And this one guy in the audience is like, well, why don't you just go back to your gang when you get out of prison? And this very articulate gentleman stepped forward and he said, sir, do you think we want to go back to our gang? People don't understand. These folks have no choices. It's not like they had great parents and mentors and got to go to the entrepreneurial program at Stanford. They have had no options. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're choosing. So if we can give them those opportunities, we're going to change our community completely because, we're afraid of these people. There's crime. It's because folks, they don't have a lot of options. You know what I mean? So if we can change that and provide respectful working places and treat them, like family, you should see, I can tell you firsthand. You can see it. You see it we see it on a daily basis in our businesses, just the change in these people and how much they want to change their lives and get their kids back and be back in their families. It's
Amazing.
great.
Book or film to change your life?
Oh gosh. The Sound of Music. No, I don't know. Oh, that's hard. There's so many, right? I don't even know. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking of like all these different movies and different books. I can't even think of one that just like completely changed my life at the moment.
No
Sorry.
How about a song that you heard that made you say, that's my life? That's me in the lyrics and the music.
Aerosmith, Dream On.
Wonderful. Great choice. Though, just to backtrack, that Glorious Food is going to find its way into the introduction.
There you go. There you go. Is that Oliver? Yeah, was that Food Glorious Food Oliver? I think so. Or no, it was one of those, something like that. Yeah.
Complete the sentence. Recently, I've
thought about retirement.
I want to say you heard it here first, but I don't want to say you heard it here first.
I don't know. I think about it every once in a while, like what it would be like, but I don't think I'll ever retire.
You just booked yourself a return show. That's that we did. People will surprise you most often when they, when they start telling you like how they've changed their life, like when you see them their lives changing, you know what I mean? And like somebody that was sort of like bored and didn't really care all of a sudden develops passion in something. I love that. That really, it's a good surprise, You will know your journey's significance when?
I think when people, and this has happened and, people come back to you. There's people that have, I lost track of years ago that come back to you and tell you, I'm where I am today because you did this or you get, and some of these people, you remember them, but like, didn't realize at the time the impact you had. So I think when people come back to you and share with you that, the impact that you had on them.
There's always people who
make things harder than they need to be. And I always encourage those people to lighten up a little bit. We recently had a situation where somebody was kind of their own worst enemy and got in their way. And we just sat down and addressed that. And they thought about it and they've like completely changed. So, I think sometimes people need to like lighten up and let go and, let things happen, not try to control everything. I think
life has taught me to
just go with the punches, just take each day at a time, take everything as it comes.
My mantra is
Dory from Finding Nemo, and it's just keep swimming.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Winning teaches you
humility, I think, and it teaches you to try new things. If you win and you're like, okay, well, let's try something else. That succeeded. Let's try something else. I think winning teaches you to try new things.
Losing teaches you
to try new things.
Very nice. I see what you did there.
Right? It's like, okay, so you win, so let's try new stuff because that worked. And then it's like, you lost. So, okay, well, let's try something new because that didn't work. So then the moral of the story is you just have to keep trying new things, whether you win or you lose, right?
Mentoring means?
I think mentoring to me is sharing the honest, genuine, good, the bad, and the ugly, Like when people come to me for advice, I do not sugarcoat it. I'm like, okay, just like I said, like we look at each other all the time on our different management teams and we're like, this is so hard. Like this is really, not working. So I think mentoring to me is just very honest in the trenches, the good, the bad, and the ugly, blood and guts, the good stuff, but just preparing people that like this entrepreneurial journey is a very tough journey, but with hard work and honesty and a big support system and not being afraid to ask for help, it's possible to navigate it. But I just think it's really important to not sugarcoat, the war stories.
The delicate balance of life and work
is elusive to me, is difficult for me. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at it. I'm trying to get better at it. I used to be really bad at it, but that is something in retrospect I wish I had done way better at. But like, I like your blend concept. That resonates with me because, yeah, I think it's possible to blend it. But it's really hard. Again, that's one of those things I think you can't really sugarcoat. It's very difficult, it really is because you're passionate about what you're doing and you want to do it well and you want to spend a lot of time on it, but you've got other responsibilities. So I find that to be one of the hardest things, actually.
When you think you may not be enough.
I think you need to talk to people around you, talk to your friends and your family and your colleagues, because we're so hard on ourselves and we sort of like, negate the benefit we have. We're like, oh, I'm not that, So I think to talk to people that are like, no, like, to get that reaffirmation that you are enough, and I think a lot of us, in fact, probably all of us feel that we're not enough quite a bit of the time, actually. But the people that know us know what value we are to them and to others, it really helps.
True partnership demands.
I think it's communication first and foremost. Communication, but also definitely requires a sense of humor in my life. So that you can kind of roll through the punches. But also, I think just I often tell my teams that like I'm like a no-fault insurance company. I'm not a big blame. I think there has to be, you have to acknowledge when things go wrong, but there has to be like a redemption and like forgiveness and move on piece, I think, in a partnership. There's always going to be difficulties and disagreements and people see things a different way, but there's got to be a way to kind of agree to disagree and move on and still be productive. So I think, communication number one, but then I think there's got to be like a, acknowledgement that we're not always going to necessarily agree in a partnership, but to make that okay, that it's okay to do that and that the partnership is more valuable than any type of difference of opinion.
Your own story is
kind of complicated. It's a comic book. I don't know. I hope my story is that I leave the world a little better place. I hope that's my story.
I'm sure it will be. Legacy at this point in my life means to me.
So, I talked about my kids a little bit, and I do share this openly because I want people to really self-search on this, like I said, I thought I was like modeling this great work ethic and this great legacy and modeling all this, like, this is how you serve your community. And like, I was very much a part of building St. Stan's new great big church out on Mays. And I thought, how great that my kids will grow up. My mom helped build this church. And like, they basically are like, yeah, but we had to sit in daycare every day for, 4 years, you know what I mean? So like, I thought my legacy was going to be, I did all this great stuff, but I think our families really do come first. And so if I could rewrite that, I would do that a little bit different. And I know on most levels they understand that, but I do wish I had made a few different choices in terms of time I spent with my kids, which I thought was adequate, but in retrospect, it may not have been. I think if we can just leave a legacy that we, like, as I said, we helped people and we left the world a better place than when we got here.
I'd be happy to know you're in good company. Many of us have thought these thoughts. Yeah. When I catch myself becoming too close or getting too close to the work to make an ideal decision,
So I seek the advice of other people. I've gotten way better at this, and I wasn't great at this at 25, was seeking the advice. I was like, I guess I'm supposed to have all the answers. So it took, the school of hard knocks and being, realizing that I don't know it all many, many times and causing, failures to occur because of that I just go outside and ask others for advice, and opinions and perspective to gain new perspective on things. And it really does help. I mean, we just all certainly don't, have all the answers. So, and the sooner we realize that, the better for our businesses.
Random association. You know the rules. I'll say a word, and if you like, say the first that comes to your mind. Faith.
God.
Community.
People.
Impact.
Effect.
Communication.
Talking.
Disenfranchisement.
Loneliness.
Dad.
Hero.
Food.
Delicious.
Family.
Love.
Passion.
I just see a heart. I don't know why. Is that?
That's the first time we've had a visual.
The heart emoji.
There you
go. Heart emoji.
Redemption.
Forgiveness.
Blessing.
Goodness.
Paying it forward.
Helping.
And now we come to the part of the show which we affectionately call the 11, which we shamelessly pilfered from Lipton, who shamelessly pilfered it from Proust. We're in good company. Or at least we steal from good company. What is your favorite part of starting something new?
I think it's the opportunity for trial and error and just trying new ideas and seeing what works.
What is your least favorite part of starting something new?
I think it's listening to all of the naysayers and the people that tell you they don't think it's a good idea.
What interests you most?
I think it's discovering new ideas and how they can serve a need in the community or a need within our team or our companies or our customers.
What interests you the least?
When we're starting something new, I hate moving stuff around. Sometimes when we start something new, we have to move to a different location, and I hate moving.
Once again, you're in good company. I've not met a person who's told me they love to move. This is a radio station, after all. What music, artist, genre, song reminds you most of your early days in entrepreneurship?
Okay, so I'm a music person too, with vinyl.
Okay.
So So I have a lot, like really a lot. Okay. So it's things like, so early days was like a combination of like Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles with some very strong Led Zeppelin, The Who. No, I'm like, you don't understand. Like when I go back and look at calendars when I was young, it's things like do flowers at church, go to a Girl Scout meeting, and then Led Zeppelin Day on the Green, Oakland Coliseum. I mean, that's what my calendar, like my little flowery calendar when I was a little kid.
I own a reproduction of the sculpture of the Presence obelisk on the Presence album. Yes. I'm that Led Zeppelin fan as well. So Oakland. Yeah. No. Yes. I am huge. Yes. I'm that guy. I'm a huge fan. Absolutely.
Robert Plant's going to be at Ironstone on August 21st.
That's it.
Do you know that? Okay, I'm going to talk to you about that. Okay, I need to talk to you about that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So big Led Zeppelin fan, like big Led Zeppelin
wonderful.
fan. Okay. So, and then I took my kids to see The Who when they were in grammar school. And then maybe a little, like some James Taylor worked in there a little bit, maybe, because I played the guitar starting at age 5. So I used to sit and watch, like, TV, didn't have any, we had no YouTube videos, right? And then definitely some Stones in there. I'm a big Rolling Stones fan. I go see their concerts. And then I have to talk about Aerosmith, because that was and U2, those were playing playing in my
Well, there's a
my
reason that
life.
people listen to classic rock. One, that it's classic, and two, that it's rocks. I mean, that's just the way that goes. Wonderful.
Right. So
What food or beverage reminds you most of your memories of your first startup?
So definitely French roast coffee. Okay. 1982, 83, French roast coffee in a doorway. There was a doorway in the financial district on Montgomery Street. My dad worked at 555 California in the B of A building, and I worked across the street at 300 Montgomery. And there was a doorway right by the stock exchange that was the first, like you could go get a cup of French, really dark roast French coffee out of a doorway. It was a little guy with a half door. He would open the top of the door and vend French roast coffee. And my dad and I would meet there twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon for coffee, French roast coffee, 1982, San Francisco, California.
Wow. And you took me there, actually was there. What profession, non-entrepreneurial, do you admire the most?
I think the medical profession, just because, they're just so devoted to helping. I mean, it's just pure helping others. You know what I mean? And just the amount of training and expertise and just devotion. And I mean, just across the board, like I think anything in the medical field is so admirable because, and it's hard, it's just like, I just think they're angels, I really do.
What job prior to entrepreneurship did you like the most and why?
So I haven't talked about this. So when I was at Berkeley, well, before I went to Berkeley, when I was just like in high school, I went to the Red Cross to see what volunteer needs they had. And they had a deaf-blind child who needed someone, as part of my like Annie Sullivan, Julie Andrew, Sound of Music, like, stuff. But so I went and worked with a deaf-blind girl in Oakland and just would take her on walks to the park and stuff. So I got very interested in working with the deaf and the blind and thought about going into special ed. So when I was at Berkeley, that was like one of my favorite, like I loved that and really thought about special ed for a long time, but ended up not doing that. But that was a great job.
What job prior to entrepreneurship did you dislike the most and why?
So one of the other little jobs I had that I went into, became a Kelly girl, went to a temp agency when I could get a permit. Girls. And I worked I was a Kelly girl. I worked at Sunshine.
Did you get the little purse, the little change purse that they gave you? Yeah.
Oh yeah. With your little forms in it that you put in.
Kelly staffing. We're not plugging anybody here.
Yeah, no. Right? No. And I worked at Sunshine Biscuits in Oakland, with the home of the Cheez-It, right? And I typed on a typewriter, a Selectrix typewriter, columns of numbers for Mr. Birch, who was the accountant, James Birch. If you're out there, Mr. Birch, you're that's okay. Okay. And I typed columns of numbers for him. And if you would bring him your paper with columns of numbers, okay, on a typewriter, everybody, not a word processor, a typewriter where you hit the tab button and the keys, okay, the whole thing. And he would hold the piece of paper up. And if there was a mistake, you couldn't use liquid paper or whiteout. And if there was a mistake, you had to start over. In like columns and columns and columns of numbers. That was the worst. Yeah, that was a horrifying job.
And last but not least, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome home.
Immediately thereafter, what idea or innovation would you like to pitch to him, her, they, it, with the universe as your marketplace?
I would ask him or her, be interesting, to have every person on the earth be unconditionally loved by at least one other person.
Ann Endsley, thank you for gracing the airwaves through the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Studio.
Thank you. It was so fun to chat with you. Thank you so much, Dr. Romero.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Studio. This podcast is part of the Warrior Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, affectionately known as the WE. Our series is recorded on the campus of Stanislaus State at the KCSS radio station and produced by Frankie Tovar. Follow and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. I'm Dr. Pablo Paredes Romero, wishing you the best of everything, always.